Millions of dollars, and still the problem is not solved. People suffering from mental illnesses wind up in jail because there's nowhere else for them to go. WNCT's Katie Hardin goes behind bars to learn more about the situation that seems to treat a symptom instead of targeting the real problem.
The National Association of Sheriffs says that there are more than 350,000 mentally ill patients behind bars. That's 10 times more people than are in mental health facilities. And right here in Eastern North Carolina, we're seeing the problem firsthand.
Today's detention facilities and jail facilities, as well as prisons, have become yesterday's mental health facilities.
Pitt County has closely monitored 25 severely mentally ill people who have been in and out of jail over the past 15 years. Major J.E. Phillips says the problem may be where the mentally ill are sent.
We have to be concerned with those, or the population of those that are mentally ill in our community, being brought to a facility that's not necessarily adapted to the actual illness that they have.
Those 25 inmates have cost $1.5 million of taxpayer money, and that number only includes the funds used to house them.
If we wind up receiving someone that is a mentally ill patient, it prolongs the criminal judicial system in completing or disposing of that case. Therefore, money's involved.
Craven County District Attorney Scott Thomas says the problem first started to save money.
Several years ago, there was a move towards decentralization to push the services back out in the community. And the problem with that, the funding never followed that decentralization.
The cost-saving move may have some serious consequences.
So what's happening at this point is you have folks with various levels of mental health issues who are out on the streets every day. You're walking past them on the sidewalk, you're with them in the mall, you're with them in the grocery store, and you don't even know it. But they could have an incident at any time. And it's important that the public be aware of that. It's an issue of public safety. It's a matter of having the legislature provide adequate funding so that we can get mental health services provided in these communities.
Dr. Sai Saeed says moving forward, a new approach should be considered.
Clearly, there would be saving on many other dimensions from the social aspects of that. But there is at least indication that if we do the right thing in the first place, we may end up saving money.
The right thing, Saeed says, is identifying the problem and being honest about its severity.
We need to think about and start with the patient and say, so this is a person, what's the best we can do? If this person ends up in jail or needs to be in jail or prison setting, then we need to make sure that there is good treatment which is being provided to these patients, just like we take care of any other medical illness.
Pitt County Sheriff Neil Elks says the cycle will likely continue if something is not done.
This is the same problem we've been dealing with for weeks in and weeks out. So we look at it as, where do we go from here?
Continuing to back up the legal system and cost taxpayers millions.
It's going to take the cities, the counties, and the state levels to recognize there needs to be a program for them. Combine all the players and persons of interest into that program, and let's come up with a solution, what we can do here.
Every key player agrees this problem cannot continue to go unnoticed by the government or the community. Katie Hardin, 9 on your side.
The Pitt County Sheriff's Office has applied for a grant to continue to work on the problem seen in jails across the state. It expects to hear back about the funding by August. Tonight, we continue to look into mental health in the East, focusing on the large military community that calls our area home. Now, these men and women are asked to serve and sacrifice, leaving their lives and families behind and at times paying the ultimate price. But even when service members do return home, they still fight their own battles. WNCT's Katie Hardin is here now with the state of military mental health.
I met with Joshua Jensen, a man who served our country and is now battling PTSD. He says he had to start over when he got home, even facing a divorce. Not because of lack of treatment services, but because he had to admit that he was not alone on the mental front line.
When I was reconnaissance, which is a specialized form of combat arms. Its primary job is to get eyes on things, find out information, kind of move in, move out quietly.
Joshua Jensen is 26 years old and is an Army vet. He served 3.5 years in Iraq, helping ground forces and even worked to train the Iraqi Army.
You're used to being on edge 24/7.
Jensen says while deployed, he saw a lot of destruction, including losing some of his friends while in combat. Now he's working to readjust on the home front.
The hardest part is kind of learning how to be a person again and not be a soldier.
PTSD is a daily struggle for Jensen, like many other military members who have seen war-torn areas across the globe. He is diagnosed with having severe anxiety, chronic sleep impairment, depression, panic attacks, and even memory loss. Jensen is not alone with the troubles he brought home from Iraq. The U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs estimates more than 21% of Iraqi war veterans suffer from PTSD.
It's indisputable that our veterans are our nation's heroes, but as strong as they are, they're not immune to the human emotions that all of us experience.
Identifying the symptoms and seeking treatment are some of the hardest battles to overcome when it comes to military members.
Kind of force myself to see that something's wrong and that I have to be okay. But it's not easy, and it is a daily, I daily have to work on it.
Studies say early treatment is necessary.
I totally know that the faster we intervene in the treatment of stress disorders, the likelihood that the treatment will be effective and the recovery from the symptoms will be increased.
The Center of Veteran Affairs is just one resource available to military men and women suffering from PTSD. It is as simple as logging onto your computer to find help.
This day and age, we have social media sites, we have electronic resources, we have 800 numbers that somebody can call, not necessarily the veteran, but even a family member, to encourage a veteran and help engage in treatment.
After the sacrifices have been made and the time served, Jensen says he knew this was a possibility, and he still chose to protect and serve.
I went to make a difference, and I knew the price it could cost, and I was willing to pay it. It's difficult, and it's not easy, and it's not fun, but I knew what I was doing when I signed up. I knew what the consequences could be when I signed up.
Willing to risk it all to protect the freedoms they provide. We have more information listed on our website at WNCT.com, including tests and even apps that can help assess a situation and direct you to proper resources that are available if you believe you're suffering from PTSD. Katie Harden, 9 on your side.